Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert. The Penn State faithful are happy down in Happy Valley. But they'd be even happier if they could finally break through and make the college football playoff. Today we take a look at their schedule to see if they can do just that, as the Nittany Lions are ranked 7th in our way too early top 25. And for the majority of the 2019 season, Penn State was in fact a college football playoff contender. They finished the year at 11-2, champions of the Cotton Bowl over Memphis, only 2 losses coming on the road at Minnesota and at Ohio State, 2 of the best teams in the entire Big Ten last year. And luckily for Penn State, they returned so much talent from that 11-win team that they had last year. That includes Sean Clifford at quarterback, Journey Brown and Noah Cain at running back, and Pat Freiermuth at tight end, arguably the best tight end in America. They also have a new offensive coordinator in Kirk Chiraka, hopefully trying to continue the success that Penn State has had on the offensive side of the ball for many years under James Franklin. The only major loss they have is KJ Hamler, that speedy wide receiver. Defensively, they're going to be led by Micah Parsons at linebacker, and they can still be one of the best defenses in the entire Big Ten. All those pieces together, and this pretty favorable schedule adds up for a chance for Penn State to finally break through, win the Big Ten, and make the playoff. If they want to do it, they've got to do it this year. They open the season against Kent State. Certainly not a team that they want to overlook out of the MAC, but certainly a team that Penn State should take care of in Week 1. Then Week 2, they take on Virginia Tech on the road at Lane Stadium. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. Look, Lane Stadium, especially at night, is one of the most difficult places to play in the country, and the Hokies have one of the most experienced teams, not just in the ACC, but in the country as well. They bring back so much production from their team last year that just narrowly fell to Kentucky in the Belk Bowl. But Justin Fuente is certainly building something and has been building something with the Hokies at Virginia Tech. And this is just one of the many marquee matchups that we're going to see. This is an opportunity for Penn State to get a huge resume-boosting win, put on their resume for their quest of making the college football playoff on the road, under the bright lights, against a Power 5 opponent, and a good one at that could very well try to sneak into the ACC championship. So it's not a game that Penn State can afford to overlook, but luckily they don't have too many pieces that they're going to be trying to fill in. Not too many struggles that they're going to have to try to work out earlier on in this season. They have a lot of experience. This game against Virginia Tech is going to be a really, really good one. Week 3, San Jose State. That game might not even happen anymore, as California is choosing for many of their schools, including San Jose State, to do online classes in the fall, meaning that student athletes would not be on campus to play football. So that all remains to be seen. But regardless, Penn State probably would have taken business there as well. Then they kick off Big Ten Conference play. Opens up against Northwestern at home in Happy Valley. Northwestern, a team that went 3-9 last year, really was one of the most disappointing teams in 2019, considering they won the Big Ten West in 2018. I think they're going to bounce back in 2020, but maybe not enough to come on the road and beat Penn State. The key stretch for Penn State begins on October 3rd, and really that key stretch for them runs through the entire month of October. And I know, people will say, well, that's almost half their schedule. But when you look at it, you'll see it's true. It's at Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, and at Indiana. Those are their toughest tests of the season. Yeah, that Virginia Tech game is going to be tough. Michigan State, maybe. But these are going to be the toughest tests to Penn State in terms of trying to derail them in the Big Ten East and prevent them from winning that division and prevent them from trying to get to the Big Ten championship game. You start with Michigan. Big-time revenge game for the Wolverines. They were getting blown out in Happy Valley. Looked like Penn State was going to run away with it last year in their whiteout game. And then Michigan started crawling back, slowly but surely. And they were a dropped pass in the end zone away from tying that game towards the end of the fourth quarter, and then who knows what could have happened. But Penn State survived 28-21. Now they've got to go to the big house. And Michigan does have a lot of key pieces to replace. They've got a lot of key starters to replace. And this is a very big year for Jim Harbaugh. Very, very big year. And his name would maybe get off the hot seat a little bit, and the Michigan fans will be a little more happy if he can get a huge win over Penn State. Because Michigan, despite the key pieces, they're still in the East. They can still win the Eastern Division. It's very, very well possible. Top three teams are arguably Penn State, Ohio State, and Michigan. No particular order. So that Michigan game going to be huge. They get their bye week, and it would be better for Penn State if they were getting that bye week before the Ohio State game. But Iowa's a good team to have it before, too. And luckily for Penn State, they don't have to travel to Kinnick Stadium. They had to get that out of the way last year. And Sean Clifford led them to the win there, 17-12 at Kinnick Stadium. And as we all know, it's not an easy place to play, and it's not an easy place to go in and steal a win. Kirk Ferentz' squad, always very tough in the Big Ten, never backs down from a challenge, but they certainly, for the most part, are a different team on the road than they are at home. And Penn State's lucky to get them in Happy Valley. And then October 24th, this is the biggest game on their schedule, without a doubt. This will probably be the game that determines whether or not Penn State gets over that hump, wins the Eastern Division, gets to the Big Ten Championship, and maybe gets to the playoff. It's Ohio State. It's Ohio State. It's Justin Fields and Ryan Day, champions of the Big Ten last year, champions of the Big Ten the year before that. Ohio State is kind of the king of the Big Ten until proven otherwise. This will be the whiteout game for Penn State. We know that. And we know, like we mentioned with Iowa, we know that the whiteout game at Penn State is different than any other home game at Penn State. It's one of the most electric atmospheres and one of the greatest scenes in all of college football. And this will be one of the biggest games in all of college football in 2020. The Nittany Lions lost to Ohio State 28-17 last year. Should have beaten Ohio State in Happy Valley 2 years ago. Very, very questionable play calls there. Hopefully they've learned from their mistakes and can steal a win over the Buckeyes on October 24th. This will more than likely decide who wins that Eastern Division in the Big Ten. And Penn State has that game at home. That's why they have to take advantage of it. Then on Halloween, they face off against Indiana October 31st, a team they beat 34-27 last year in Happy Valley, but the Hoosiers kind of came in and gave Penn State a bigger test and a bigger fight than I think they were expecting. And the Hoosiers lose a lot of key pieces as well, a lot of key pieces across the board, but their offense is going to be very, very dangerous. Very, very dangerous from a team that won 8 games last year and nearly won their bowl game over Tennessee. So this is a major trap game for me. You got a 5-game stretch here. We know Michigan's going to be tough. We know Ohio State's going to be tough. Same can be said for Iowa. Indiana, yes, going to be tough, but I think Penn State will probably be favored in that game. And depending on what happens here against Ohio State, they could get caught off guard by the Hoosiers because one of two things are going to happen. Penn State's going to beat Ohio State, and they're going to be riding a high coming into Indiana. And, maybe you get caught off guard in those scenarios. Or they lose to Ohio State. Season's not over, especially if they're undefeated coming up to this point. But they lose to Ohio State and they're hungover. They think their season's done. They think they're done for. They're toast. And then they get beat by a Hoosier squad that is no pushover. One of two things are going to happen there. Or maybe a third happens and whatever happens against Ohio State, Penn State's hyped and they come out, take care of business. Or they're mad after a loss to Ohio State and they take care of business. But we've seen multiple years, especially the past few years, when Penn State has lost to the Buckeyes, they usually do not bounce back very well. Indiana, major, major trap game for the Nittany Lions. Get into the month of November, and things are a little more manageable. They face off against Big Ten opponents that aren't necessarily, towards the top of the list and towards the top of the standings. At Nebraska, a team that Penn State did not play last year, a team that really needs a big year in year 3 under Scott Frost. Really just needs to get to a bowl game. In Nebraska, a very difficult place to play. Some of the most passionate fan bases, or one of the most passionate fan bases and atmospheres in all of college football. So certainly not going to be an easy test for Penn State, but one they should, in theory, take care of business in. Michigan State and Maryland, back-to-back home games after back-to-back road games between Indiana and Nebraska. Michigan State now adding Mel Tucker as their brand new head coach. A lot to figure out there. And then Maryland, they're a team that Penn State beat 59-0 last year. And that was at Maryland. So while I do think that Mike Locksley's Terrapins turn things around and are maybe a little more competitive, and maybe you see flashes of that team that we thought was going to be really, really good last year after the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season, you might see that, especially by November 21st. But coming into Happy Valley, no easy test. And then finally at Rutgers, a team Penn State defeated 27-6 last year. Actually, a relatively small margin of victory considering how poor Rutgers was last season in the midst of a head coaching search and everything like that. And now with Greg Schiano, should be a little more competitive. It just might not be in 2020. And that's how they close out the year. The Football Power Index has Penn State at 11-1. And who do you think they lose to? It's Ohio State. That's what the FPI is predicting right now. 11-1 with a loss to Ohio State. Meaning that if Ohio State were to go undefeated, Penn State would not be in the Big Ten Championship. But they would be on the bubble of making the college football playoff. We have seen teams that have not gone to their conference championship, that have not won their conference, sneak into the playoff, or at least be on the cusp of getting that 4th spot on Selection Sunday. And with that 11-1 record, with a close loss to Ohio State, if that's how it all shapes out, Penn State will certainly be there. But of course, James Franklin's squad doesn't want to have to worry about that scenario. They want to take care of business. They would want to be the team that's 12-0. They want to be the team that has to control their own destiny going into Selection Sunday, going into Conference Championship weekend, and they certainly have the talent and the schedule to do just that. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, and subscribe. We appreciate your support so much. And make sure to check out everything down in the description as well for exclusive college football news, content, and offers that you do not want to miss. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.